Welcome to Storytime. This year, we're exploring yoga tales, myths, and legends, and specifically their application to our modern day lives. So welcome to Storytime. I'm Kimberlyn, and I'm here to meet you in this precious space. When you find yourself in need of inspiration or guided introspection, that's what I do. That's why I'm here. Whether it's related to your practice on the mat or out in the world, to me, it's all yoga. And by that, I mean it's all part of living and learning. In other words, we are not here to be perfect or perform, but rather to practice. So let me be clear. I am not here because I have it all figured out. And on the contrary, I am here because I believe that no matter what we've accomplished, what we've endured, life is better when we come together authentically and compassionately to share our stories. Storytime is a virtual meeting space where we gather to connect. This journey of life is all about connection, and yoga is the practice of building and nurturing authentic connections. By sharing our stories, we share our hearts. We connect more deeply, more intimately with ourselves and each other. And whether it's live and in real time or anytime, on your time, we're here to be together. It's February, the month of love, and this month's story is a tale of Shiva and Parvati, taken from the Shiva Purana. Now, every major story about Parvati's birth and lineage to Shiva has regional variations, suggesting creative local adaptations. The stories always go through many ups and downs until Parvati and Shiva are finally married. But first, let me give you a little bit of background about our main characters. So there's Meena, and Meena is the mother of Parvati and an avid Shakti devotee. In fact, as a result of her trance-like state of worship to Shiva, Meena unintentionally displayed disrespect by not noticing the presence of a sage. The sage in turn cursed Meena to marry a mountain. Himalaya. Himalaya is the personification of the Himalayan mountains in the Hindu tradition. He is the guardian deity of the Himalaya mountains and is mentioned in the epic Mahabharata, as well as other Hindu scriptures. He is also the father of Parvati. Narada. Narada is considered one of the most significant sages in Hindu mythology. He was an avid traveler, and it is believed that he had the ability to appear anywhere at any time. He was constantly traveling between different Hindu lokas, or worlds, or states, and it is believed that he could do so at lightning speed. Stories say that Narada also acted as a messenger for the gods. If the earth or the heavens were in trouble, Narada was the one who would inform the supreme deities. Now to our leading man, Shiva, known as the Destroyer. He has many aspects, benevolent as well as fearsome. In his benevolence, he is depicted as omniscient yogi who lives an ascetic life on Mount Kailash, as well as a householder with his wife, Parvati, and his two children, Ganesha and Skanda. In his fierce aspects, he is often depicted slaying demons. Shiva is also known as the Adi Yogi, the first yogi, and regarded as the patron god of yoga, meditation, and the arts. In contemporary culture, Shiva is depicted in arts, in films, and books, tattoos. He has been referred to as the god of cool things and a bona fide rock star hero. And finally, Parvati. Parvati is the human form taken by Shakti as the daughter of Meena and Himalaya, and considered Shakti's most nurturing aspect. Adi Shakti is celebrated as the goddess of power, energy, nourishment, harmony, love, beauty, devotion, and motherhood. Shakti embodies the feminine energy and is often depicted as the consort of Shiva. So, the story of divine eternal love. Overjoyed at the birth of their baby girl, Meena and Himalaya named their child Parvati. Parvati grew to be a beautiful and independent little girl, the apple of her devoted parents' eyes. While Parvati was still quite young, sage Narada visited Himalaya. His visits were famous because he always brought news from far-off places. He also liked to point out things that people hadn't realized and then pushing them into action. I can relate. Himalaya welcomed Narada with joy and humility, maybe a little bit of apprehension. Himalaya asked Narada to read his daughter's horoscope. Himalaya, he began, your daughter has all the auspicious signs of her body, and her horoscope is powerful, but she will only bring you joy. But, he cleared his throat, I do see one difficulty. Her husband will be a naked yogi. He will be free from all desires and needs. His appearance and manners will be offensive and frightening. But do not worry, Narada quickly eased Himalaya's growing concern and anxiety. Parvati's bridegroom will be none other than Lord Shiva. Himalaya was confused. Shiva sits in the wilderness in deepest meditation. He has no interests in women or marriage. How will my daughter succeed in getting his attention, let alone winning his heart? It is here that Narada reveals the deeper truth. I see you are unaware of your daughter's true identity. She is none other than the goddess Adi Shakti herself, Shiva's eternal wife, answered Narada. Now, years later, Meena prepares Parvati for the difficult task of attracting Shiva's attention by teaching her meditation as devotion. Meanwhile, Shiva has decided to settle on one of Himalaya's lovely mountain peaks to begin a new round of meditation. As soon as he realized that Shiva was nearby, King Himalaya brought Parvati to him. Parvati placed a gift of flowers and fruits before Shiva and then stood silently. Himalaya spoke with reverence. "Oh, Lord Shiva, I am honored by your visit. I have asked that no man, beast, or bird should trespass and disturb you. Please let my daughter Parvati serve you and take care of you and all your needs while you are here." Shiva opened his eyes just enough to glare at them and asked, "Why are you pushing me on your daughter? I am a yogi. I do not need the attention of women." The abruptness of his words frightened Himalaya. But Parvati recognized at once that Shiva was her eternal soulmate. Determined and fearless, she spoke up. "We are one, Shiva. You and I are one. We are incomplete without the other. Oh Lord, I beg you, please let me serve you." Shiva heard a ring of truth in Parvati's words, although he said nothing to her. Instead, he turned to his assistants, the Shivaganas, gruffly saying, "Do not bother her. She is free to come and go." Now began a life of intense hardship for Parvati. But that story we'll save for another day. Let's fast forward the story to where Parvati's efforts come to their predicted conclusion. Shiva decides to test Parvati's resolve in person. Dressed as an old Brahmin priest, Shiva appears before her. "What does your heart desire, my dear young yoni, that you have resorted to such a severe meditation? A meditation of fire that was literally burning up the world." "My heart belongs to Shiva," Parvati said. My breath is hanging on only so that I may meet him." The old man giggled. "That silly Shiva, that ugly, homeless man? He's got nothing to offer a girl like you. He lives in forests and burial grounds. His assistants are horrible ruffians. You'd have a certain life of suffering with him. Change your mind. Even now you have time to save yourself." Parvati's eyes blazed with fury. "It is a terrible sin to say such things. It is even a greater sin to listen to them." Though she knew it was rude to turn away from an elder, Parvati turned her back on the old Brahmin. She reached to put more wood on the fire so that she could resume her meditation. But the old man grabbed her arm and asked, "Why do you turn away from me, my dearest? You are my eternal beloved. Marry me, please." Startled, Parvati looked up to see that the old man had vanished. Then her heart leapt in joy, for in his place stood the love of her life, the one for whom she had endured the most difficult of trials. Shiva! At last Shiva had come. "Yes," she answered joyfully, "I will marry you." Parvati and Shiva are one of the most central couples in Hindu mythology. Each is considered the perfect complement to the other. As an aspect of the great mother goddess, Adishakti, Parvati brings forth and nurtures life. Shiva, on the other hand, holds a significant place in modern yoga due to his association with destruction. Additionally, Shiva's depiction of Adi Yogi, the first yogi, makes him a revered figure in the yoga tradition, inspiring practitioners to delve deeper into their practice and connect with their inner selves. Both Shiva and Shakti exemplify dedication to the practice of meditation. But for me, of the two, Shakti offers a more relatable example in taking on the human form of Parvati. Parvati is in the fortunate position of possessing a clear and heartfelt goal to marry Shiva. But what if one lacks this clarity of conviction? How does one figure out what would make the heart truly happy? What goal could be so important that one would do whatever was necessary to reach that goal? Although I didn't share in today's rendition of the story, Parvati used meditation and mantra to sustain her focus and shut out competing distraction. In her human struggle to live according to her values, we learn to appreciate the value of focus, concentration, and disciplined effort. Parvati's journey to win Shiva's heart will be our next story. So, in closing, I share these stories to expand our minds and our hearts, to grow in authentic alignment, and to help you and me move freely through the tasks of each and every day, the seasons of our lives. Every day is an invitation to begin again in greater intention and alignment. And connection are two halves of ourself. Bringing them together is how we can benefit from that invitation. So my invitation to you is just that. Connect. Let's connect. You connect. What is your takeaway from today's story? What do you think about this idea of love as an eternal union of balancing forces? Can you relate this story to those that you grew up with, or those that taught you about love, dedication, clarity of purpose? If the practice of yoga is brand new to you, then take a deep breath and check out Coach's Chat with me next week. We'll get more specific about how to apply and integrate this story into ways of living well, inspired living. But if you've been walking the yoga talk for a while, then it's time to see what little shifts you can integrate into your daily life. How are you living your yoga? How are you reflecting this divine love? When I hear from you, I use your questions and examples to expand and personalize these messages so they support you in living well. So email me. Join me on the Inspired app, or come on into the studio. Whether you visit us in person or online, whether it's for a one-on-one or a group experience, we want to meet you in the practice. We want to support you in living your life's work. So as we conclude today's session, let's close with a blessing. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. May you be well. Namaste. What's your take on today's story? What did you notice?
I lit up at the part where she turned her back on the old Brahmin. It was like, it was a really special moment.
Yeah. And I love that about her character too, in the sense that she's so committed to her own life's work that she stands up for herself twice in this story. The first is to Shiva himself. And of course, we now know that she's also standing up to Shiva in the second one, but she doesn't know that it's Shiva. But she stands up in defense of Shiva, even when an authority tells her he's garbage. He's not worth it. And when we dive deeper into the journey in between this meeting and this marrying, and we learn of the hardships, I think we're going to have even more respect and admiration for Parvati. And maybe even for our own journeys of standing up for ourselves and continuing the hard work of practicing compassion and love. Because there's all kinds of people and opportunities to fall prey to the opposite. Whether that shows up in giving up, or in gossiping, or in actively harming another. In defense, in protection, it's not what love asks of us. Yeah. Why did that spark for you? What was it that it resonated for you when you heard of her turning away?
A little bit of the anti-authority rebel in my spirit of just because someone is highly regarded by others doesn't necessarily mean that their message is right for me. And the internal strength necessary to turn your back on someone knowing that you could be a social outcast for it is really, really powerful.
Yeah, there could be real consequences. And I think that there's a legitimate relationship with being willing to stand up to authority. But the same is also true in the sense that when we just reject authority because it's authority, that's equally troublesome.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to balance, and that's why I think clarity and knowing our life's work is the first work, that going in to then find our way back out. We've got to know what our work is, what our dharma is. And of all the paths I've walked, of all the disciplines I've studied, of all the days that I've lived, the greatest practice for cultivating clarity for me has been the yoga way. The breathing, the moving, the resting. The pausing and then moving again. Pausing and moving again. Testing through experimentation and practice and listening and learning. And it's all wrapped up, hence it's all yoga. But in being all yoga, it's rooted first and foremost in this compassion, which Shiva and Shakti demonstrate as the coming together of the male and the female energy. That also, we'll talk about this next week, is that same blending of male and female energies in all things. The hard, the soft, the strong, the weak, the energetic, the tired. These are just other nuances of oppositions, right? That we ride that continuum, finding our way to ebb and flow. Great. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts or questions?
Maybe we'll get into it in the next couple of weeks. I have a problem with this whole male versus female energy thing these days, but neither here nor there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big one, and I welcome it because I think it's just another way in which our limited brains try to make sense, but there's so much culture, there's so much judgment built in. And to what end?
Yeah.
More judgment? That's not love. So, yeah. You got my heart on that one. Okay.